Tswalu Kalahari Reserve. If you have read the latest newsletter that went out in December, you will be aware that I presented a PowerPoint presentation to the American Society of Botanical Artists Conference in October 2020. As an introduction to my exhibition at the Circa Everard Read Gallery, which looks like happening next month, we will share the PowerPoint presentation. The Tswalu exhibition will open from the 1st of February to the 13th of March. We will arrange a couple of walkabouts for our members, but you will need to book a place so that we can control numbers. So a little background. I retired from the South African National Biodiversity Institute in December 2017 after 34 years as a resident artist. I went straight into curating the Botanical Art Worldwide exhibition in the May, soon after which I was invited to be artist in residence at the Tswalu Kalahari Reserve. My first visit to this unique area was in November 2018, and the project ran until February 2020, giving me just over a full horticultural year to study the flora. I gave myself an additional 6 months to complete the work for an intended solo exhibition in June 2020, which was postponed due to lockdown. A 9 to 11 hour drive from my home, the reserve is in the Northern Cape, is the largest private wildlife sanctuary in South Africa. It is owned by the Oppenheimer family, who developed a conservation area of over 100,000 hectares with a vision to restore the Kalahari to itself. Tswalu is set in the stark landscape of red dunes, purple mountains of the Coronaburg Range, and undulating grasslands. First prize for me is having the opportunity to draw plants in their natural habitat, to feel the sun and breeze, hear the birds and watch the pollinators, and observe their place in the environment helps me understand and connect with my subjects. The Elephantorhiza elephantina is one of our suffratex or underground tree species. They have persistent woody stems and branches that develop underground. I have developed a special affinity for these plants, having illustrated a few species in the past. On Tswalu, one sees extensive colonies of the impalatable leaves stretching across the savanna, which are in fact the current year's shoots rising from underground branches. Growing in sand, I took the opportunity to reveal some of the underground stems. I take time selecting my specimens and hope nature will dictate composition. I study my chosen subject from every angle and then draw straight onto my paper. Coming from a scientific background, everything is measured and counted. Plants are all drawn life size. The rich yellow spike of this beautiful creeper decorates the Kalahari roadsides from spring through to autumn. The Bosquea albatronca is one of the iconic trees on the reserve and the most important food plant. It is heavily browsed by the game and host to many butterfly species. The shepherd's tree's fruiting branches was drawn in the studio. Once painted, I drove around for months looking for the right tree to include, as each one had a beautiful shape, with the rounded top and branches sweeping to the ground. Once selected, I sat drawing out of doors over several afternoons, starting around 5 o'clock when it started cooling down until dusk. I protected the area where I'm not working with sheets of acetate and rest my hand on cotton sheeting. While on one of the dunes to put my Elephantorhiza into its habitat, I needed to train strategy as the wind was blowing sand everywhere and made sitting on the ground impossible. This collection of plants was found on the crest of one of the dunes. I thought combining them was a way to illustrate some of the smaller plants that would not make a dramatic show on their own, and they tell a story of the diversity that thrive on the dune. I use Arches hot press paper. Most of my paintings are drawn on full sheets, both 300 and 600 gram, as well as the Arches mounted on Canson board, sadly discontinued. The board is perfect for working out of doors as offers a very stable support. Over the years, I've learned that it's important to complete drawing in one session. Rain is unpredictable in this part of the country, so all wildlife is well adapted to survival in the harsh environment. With the first rains, seemingly dormant plants burst into life, briefly transforming the veldt into an enchanting landscape. The flower of this Sansevieria species opens at night, emitting a strong scent. I'm well known for starting paintings when I see something that excites me, that I just must capture. I draw quickly, but due to time constraints, often the painting comes later, sometimes years, so it is difficult to say how long a painting takes. At one point I had up to 15 paintings to complete, but that wouldn't have prevented me starting something new. I was not familiar with the cadaver plant and drew the succulent stem before seeing the extraordinary flowers, though had seen photographs in a guidebook. The flowers have no petals. The sepals range from reddish purple through to orange, with the red ovary extending beyond the stamens. The fruits were not plentiful. When they split, they reveal sticky orange seeds. With the good rains, these albuca flowers flower in profusion in localized areas of the reserve. I wanted to capture the feeling of them dancing across the page. Sitting on the floor, I first sketched lightly in a 2B pencil, adjusting a couple of the curves to cross over comfortably, then went back and drew in detail. Sometimes I'll draw sections of the painting on tracing paper and work out the composition on a separate sheet of paper. All painting was done in the studio with fresh material. The air is so dry there that it's almost impossible to do large areas of wash. I tended to leave that until I was back home or do a late evening shift. One visit, I took over the research manager's office as there was air conditioning. A fifth of the plants in the Kalahari are geophytes, consisting of bulbs, corms, and tubers. They are adapted to survive in the extreme conditions of the summer, where temperatures soar to the 40 degrees centigrades and plummet to below freezing at night during the winters. The moment I finished this Amocorus flower head, 18 buds opened as the sun sunk behind the hills. They only bloom for about 4 days, so time is limited. When observing in the field, it is difficult not to develop a special appreciation for the beauty of the unique flora, to witness the delicate balance of all the organisms and be mesmerized by the ants and beetles scurrying around. I drew this bulb up on the rocky outcrop behind the research center, heading up there before sunrise. It is protected from the extreme conditions by the thick layers of papery sheaths. I collected rocks to take home and tried to give the same attention of detail as the bulb. Soon after the slightest hint of rain, Nerine latacoma leaves and the impressive inflorescence, up to 30 centimeters in diameter, appear in the stark landscape. I hold a collecting permit from the Northern Cape Conservation Authority and have landowners' permission, so I was able to lift these bulbs and bring them inside to draw. Having made a herbarium voucher of all the plants for this project for the National Herbarium, as it is an undeclected area. All bulbs were replanted. The second painting of the same species shows a completely different aspect. In the good rainy season around the staff village, thousands of these bulbs cover the arid veldt as far as you can see. It's truly a magnificent sight and made richer with all the insect activity. The following January, after a time of drought, there were hardly any flowers, and then a quarter the size, just not the same place or experience. To see this stunning lily's flower open had been on my bucket list for over 15 years. Soon after the sun set behind the dunes, the bud starts to swell. The clip at the top of the outer sepals releases, and the petals unfurled like synchronized dancers. I drew the first bud while we waited. but in the excitement of watching the magic, completely forgot to draw the open flower. It was definitely worth the wait. Growing among the rocks, this young euphorbia, as of Montana, caught my eye. I worked from 6 o'clock in the morning as the sun rose over the mountains until by 8 o'clock the heat and flies made it too uncomfortable. I went out early on 4 consecutive mornings to complete the detailed pencil drawing. The small lizard you see obviously got used to me sitting there and moved around comfortably. On the 4th day, just before completing my work, I happened to glance behind me to see 4 large male buffaloes grazing just beyond my vehicle. A good reason to slowly pack up and creep back to my car. A different aspect of the same euphorbia, the mature plant showing inflorescence and the distinct triangular fruit. I love the challenge of drawing this plant with its protective spikes. I have illustrated other species of this family, so knew the important characteristics to include. I have always been drawn to plants that have adapted themselves to their harsh environment and protected themselves from grazing animals. A perfect little composition with the twisted wooded roots. 5 Cleome species are found on the reserve, so I combined them on a single plate. One species had not been seen for 7 years, so I ended up by drawing from a herbarium specimen and using photographs for the colour. The last one had only been collected once and growing outside of its normal range. 22nd of December 2019, I had a phone call to say a small population had been found in flower. Fresh material was flown to Johannesburg by private jet, arriving on Christmas Eve. An incredibly special gift that allowed me to complete the painting. The Devil's Claw was the last botanical subject I drew. Having completed the painting, something was missing, so I added the graphite to anchor the plant. I've completed 49 paintings, 41 botanicals and a few fauna, mostly linked with the research projects happening on the reserve. They will form a solo exhibition at the Everard Read Gallery, Johannesburg, postponed twice due to COVID restrictions, until early 2021. In fact, the exhibition will run from the 2nd of February through to the 13th of March. Tswalu means a new beginning in Tswana, and this project was an exciting start to my new life of retirement.